Laura, can you hear us now?
If everyone's had the opportunity to review and approve those, if we have a motion to approve those from the board. You have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor of approving those minutes, vote aye, please. Aye. All opposed? Minutes are approved. New business. We are going to welcome our new planning and zoning commissioner, Tyler Lane. Tyler, can you just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you want to serve on the board?
Born and raised in Fort Dodge. She family of 2 kids. I recently just married this October. Just born and raised, just want to try to make a difference.
Thank you for serving on the board. All right, public hearing. Website Fort Dodge Properties LLC, amendment to the official zoning atlas, rezoning from mineral extraction to industrial zoning district for more or less 23 acres of land located north of the Des Moines River and south of the Fort Dodge landfill, which is parcel ID number 1106100009. Jeff, you got something for us?
Yes, I do. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Jeff Johnson, Planning and Zoning Administrator, presenting this rezoning petition before you this evening. Is a public hearing. All property owners within 500 feet have been noticed by mail, and advertisements have been placed in the local newspapers. The applicant, Mr. Dennis Frank of Westside Properties LLC, is requesting an amendment to the official zoning atlas or rezoning from ME mineral extraction to I-1 industrial for approximately 23 acres of land located north of the Des Moines River and south of the Fort Dodge landfill. The subject property, as shown, is outlined in red. To the north is the Fort Dodge landfill. To the east are vacant lands. And it should be noted that the applicant owns the lands to the south and west that are currently utilized as a recycling operation. Next slide. So this is a 2011 airport road property. You can see the road coming in the property. Sorry to outline this in red, but the property's off to the right. Mr. Frank purchased this property in 2012 from North Central Regional Solid Waste Agency, which was used as part of the landfill operations. As you can see from this air photo was taken in 2011, the property was 90% free and clear of debris and junk. As we move forward to a more recent air photo, 2019, you can see an encroachment here, miscellaneous junk and debris on the property over the years. It should be noted that Mr. Frank was issued a notice of violation letter from the Webster County Planning and Zoning Department on September 28th of 2021. The notice required him to remove all materials off the subject property due to the fact that a recycling/salvage yard is not a permitted or conditional use in the ME zoning district. So Mr. Frank decided to pursue a change in zoning to cure the situation or matter as to removing all the debris or material at this time. Next slide. This is the official zoning map. Off to the left, the subject property is outlined in black. And as you can see, is zoned and surrounded by similar mineral extraction zoning, which is in purple. Section 310 of the Webster County zoning ordinance states that it's the intent of the ordinance to permit lawful non-conforming uses to continue until they are removed, but not encourage their survival. It is further the intent of this ordinance that any non-conformity shall not be enlarged upon, expanded, or extended. The intent of the applicant is to expand the use or business onto the subject property and would be in conflict with this provision of the zoning ordinance. As previously mentioned, there's a reasonable amount of land that he owns to the west that he currently operates this type of recycling operation. In this day and age, staff feels that the applicant should be doing this operation indoors as opposed to outdoors, and more efficiently and effectively, so it does not have any detrimental impacts on lands or neighbors. Now, there's not much, well, there's a residence nearby, but again, there's a lot of vacant land around here, but in my experience of dealing with landfills and recycling operations, a lot of places where I work, a lot of them are indoors, they just don't have a mess like this around the county. Keep in mind that it is kind of isolated, but he does have the zoning ordinance going against him here on nonconformities, in which they state that they should not be expanded. So we go to the last slide, Allison. So this is staff's recommendation. We reviewed the petition and determined that the proposed zoning district change to industrial does not comply with the review criteria evaluated in the staff report and as set in the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan. Staff therefore recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission for this petition to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of denial. So I know the applicant, along with his representative here, is available this evening. If you have any questions or they want to give a presentation, and we do have some members of the public. So this time, if you have any questions for staff, or if you want to wait, or
We'll wait till.
okay.
Would you like to?
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Ernie Kirsten. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Westside Fort Dodge Properties LLC. I think it's important for the commission to know some of the background of this tract of land. Years ago, it was the home of, I believe, of Vincent Clay Products. I believe so. That company went out of business in the 1960s as the railroads were pulling out and they were losing their ability to ship brick by brick. It was vacant. In the late 1980s, the land was purchased by Iowa Brick Company, Inc., which was a Colorado corporation that bought that tract of land as well as the Lehigh Clay Products property southwest of Lehigh. Nothing was done with this particular tract of land. Iowa Brick didn't pay the taxes on the land. It was sold for taxes in 1990. There were no public bidders. It had no value. Because there were no public bidders, Webster County ended up holding the tax sale certificate. A number of years went by, no interested buyers. Mr. Frank approached Jan Horton, then the county treasurer, and offered to acquire the tax sale certificate and start the process to acquire the tax sale deed. And at that point, we learned that the county was going to convey the property for the tax sale deed, tax sale certificate to the Northwest Central or North Central Iowa Regional Solid Waste. That happened. North Central Regional Solid Waste ended up acquiring a tax deed to the property. It did not use the land for landfill operations per se. What it did do is a portion of the land on the far east had been subsurface mined many years ago for gypsum. And the landfill had a contract with Wayne Krug from Quarry Services to come in, strip the overburden over those mine shafts. That overburden was then hauled to the landfill and used for daily cover. Once the overburden was, they stripped down to the top of the rock, they chipped the rock off, sold it, and at that point, the land was completely played out. All those activities occurred before the mining, restoration, and reclamation law went into effect. Now, no doubt, if you, with USG quarries, you have to strip, segregate, and stockpile topsoil. You have to have a plan in place for restoration of the soil. And that makes sense. And that's what exists under the current zoning ordinance and state law. However, all those activities occurred out there, those rules were in effect. There is no topsoil. It is not capable of sustaining a road rot. It may have a few weeds, a few poplar trees, maybe a couple of that's not it. So the land is played out. It can't be used for agricultural purposes. It's disturbed. You can't build anything on it because you've got disturbed soil going down. The land has no value. The landfill which takes garbage. All right, that's lowest use you probably have. They didn't want it. They had no use for it. Mr. Frank stepped up and said, well, I can use it with my operations over here, which is automobile recycling and salvage. And those operations, I disagree with Mr. Johnson. Those operations can't be done inside. It requires open ground. We have Tri-Pack west of Fort Dodge. We had Netlands. We had Netlands south of town along the river. Then over by Cable River Town, that was also a salvage yard. But it requires open space. So here we are with this tract of land. You can't build on it. You can't grow crop it. You can't do anything with it. So at this stage of the game, the highest and best use is what Mr. Frank wants to use. And Olivia stood to what the 2008, 2009 zoning ordinance did, changed it to ME. He was not aware of that. And when he got his notice of violation from Mr. Johnson in September, we started discussions with the supervisors and Mr. Johnson about what to do. So we're here today to ask you to allow these operations to continue by granting the application to change the zoning from ME to industrial. Yes, but anything you'd like to add? Just outside, out of mind. He has no neighbors. One neighbor.
Can I ask you, Mr. Christian, where exactly does the county road stop? It goes down through there. I actually drove out there the other day, basically it's like takes some cycles up. And I couldn't quite figure out where the county road stops and where. I got to break the hill on the side of the other around.
Take a right with the red line jogs to the right.
Okay,
I think that's the one.
okay.
Is that close?
That's correct. I had discussions with Jamie Joel. There is county right of way not shown that goes, that road actually comes down and actually bends around and goes south all the way to that line, south line. So there's county right of way there. Yeah. And so it's been an issue with Mr. Frank. From my understanding of discussions with Mr. Joel, that his operation and his materials have been covering that right of way. They've been working with him in a number of cases to make sure that that right of way is clear, because we do have residents behind there that need access. So it's a county issue, it's a neighborly issue, and I haven't been too much involved in that. There is a right of way.
And there was an issue, I think, prior to last September, the last time we had an issue with the county was, I believe, 2011, 2012. So, working with Darren Driscoll from the county attorney's office, Mr. Frank has brought, and with Jamie Joel, I believe he's brought the roadway and the ditches into compliance. And they will be seeded come spring. When if I got it cleaned up this fall, it was too late for fall season.
I mean, and that was my concern when I was driving out there. You know, I could not tell. I could not tell where the county road ended and where salvage started. And there's signage, there's no dead end road, there's nothing out there to indicate, you know, I mean, you say that, well, maybe nobody be driving around out there. Well, maybe they will. I mean, I was out there, so.
Is there something you'd like him to do?
Well, I guess that I was just confused as to why there isn't a more, I don't say a line of demarcation or anything, but you cannot tell out there because it just morphs into a junkyard. I have my dog in the truck and I don't know, the dogs to me does. I didn't know if you had any dogs on there. I just didn't want the dogs to be barking back and forth, so I just figured, you know what, I gotta find a spot in the road to turn around. And I had a hard time finding a spot in the road I could turn around.
Well, yeah, your point is well said. So if this gets approved, the use is not a permitted use, and the industrial zoning district requires a conditional use permit. At that time, the zoning is approved, it come forth with that conditional use permit, and we would have our county staff review that. Jamie Joe will take a look at that. We want to make sure there's sufficient right of way, that the right of way is improved to county standards. And there's obviously access not only for him, but the neighbor in the back, legal access also. So, there could be an array of conditions to make sure that, what needs to get done out there gets done, and, you know, he'd be held accountable for that. So, it's a, you know, it's the same thing, I looked at that right when the petition came, and said, where's the right of way? I had the same question, I had to go and talk to Jamie and make sure that the right of way was there. Then it came to my mind, well, is it improved or not improved or whatever, and I said, well, you know, that will be worked out at the conditional use permit, and move forward to that stage on what needs to get done, what the county requirements are, and the engineering requirements are for that, so.
I mean, I was, when road curves around and that kind of goes back to the east and then it starts to make that breakdown to south. That's about where I turned around, just because I didn't know if I was on private property. I mean, you could not tell. And then there was junk lining the roads, and I was afraid if I went any further, I would find a spot to turn around. So that's not a concern for me. Why was it, do you know, Mr. Christian, do you know why the landfill just said, hey, we just can't use this? I'm surprised about that, and I asked Jeff if he knew, just because of the fact that they are so landlocked where they're at. I'm surprised that they just said, no, we can't use that property. Do you have any ideas why they would have said?
I don't.
Okay.
I do. The DNR won't let them go any further down the river. So it was no good to them.
The DNR won't let them go.
Right. That's what I was told.
Just a question, she is wondering who does maintain that road then?
Webster County.
So those are kind of-
Well, I would think that Webster County would need to have some kind of signage then, letting, would there be some signage that needs to be put on that road, letting, or something?
Possible.
Good idea.
No, you're right, you're exactly right, and that'd be the next step. This gets approved, and he gets authorization to do this, so just to go through the conditional use permit process. Have Jamie Joe look at all that's required along their signage, if it requires a cul-de-sac or whatever it may be. I don't know, you know, in terms of all those engineering requirements, make sure it's brought to county standards and so forth. Yeah, it's a good point that's been brought up, so.
Jeff, regardless of whether it gets approved or not, shouldn't the county still have to go through there and bring that up to date, make sure that there is signage and everything? I
I would think, yeah, signage in terms of improving the road, not necessarily until something's been initiated, like development or for some reason the county feels that it needs to get improved. And Mr. Frank feels that it needs to get improved, you know.
I guess I would think that the county should just, for like some of the things that Margo was just stating, just for the safety of anybody who might go down there. You know, not knowing, am I on a road, am I not on a road? I mean, if this is a county road, it should be at least maintained by the county.
But most likely, if they had to come in there, they put the road in, someone's gonna have to pay that assessment. Yeah, so they have, probably gonna want to pay that.
My discussions with the county supervisors for the last 5 or 6 years, they would like to abandon the road right near the access to the landfill. They don't want
So I have a question then too, then the DNR stated that the county could not do anything with the landfill there. If they couldn't go any closer to the river. With the stuff that you would have, does the DNR have an issue with?
We have
Scrap.
good water, groundwater. We got to take samples of water. We have to check, like when it rains, we got to take samples and send it to eggs.
I guess I'm kind of confused on why it would be any different for you to have stuff on that property getting closer to the river than it would be for the landfill.
Don't ask them. I don't know. That's what I was told.
to be the leachate that comes from the garbage.
Really, okay, and so, and with the iron and all that, because it's
Not
more
to worry
hard
about that.
metal versus what, yeah, it doesn't leach versus the garbage.
Something I do want to point out real quick, if you go to the 2011 air photo, or sorry, I didn't bring this up in the discussion. So you can look at the debris and junk that's on the 2 parcels that he owns over here. I'll go to the next one. So obviously he was under some type of stipulation of order to clean this up, and he did. Congratulations, and he probably could have done more. well, why can't he utilize this land for his recycling operation, knowing that it's been cleaned up? And that's where I'm coming from, is why expand this use further east, when he can go ahead and it's already cleaned this up, go ahead and go back and utilize these lands here where it appears like there's more room out there. I don't know, do what he wants to do, as opposed to expanding. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, maybe the DNR can't allow you to do anything in those parcels or not, I don't know, I mean.
We've taken the vehicle off. We've
Yeah,
gotta clean some stuff up, we'll start putting in there, but we've gotta get roadways. What I've got down over the hill there, if I start putting them up there, I fill that up. Right now, the stuff over the hill is so close together, if somebody wants to buy an engine out of the car, I think it's $12 to take it out. The other part,
just looks like he could be a better steward of the land, to be honest with you, I mean,
That's my question, Jeff. What Jeff had just pointed out there, where it looks like it's cleaned up, was it cleaned up or was it just moved from point A to point B?
oh, it was pretty down, we crushed it all.
I mean, I know scrap prices have been
They
not
were,
good for the last couple of years. But I guess when I see that photo, I just think, well, okay, it looks like everything from there just maybe went over here. And, without checking up the zoning or without, I understand that Mr. Pearson said that you weren't aware that that was changed. And the original operation of some of his grandfather did.
yes, grandfather, then, correct.
So just to assume that because you own that property, that we're just gonna go ahead and start putting stuff over there. I guess that's a concern to me. The folks that are here, if you'd like to get up and say something, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and please, any comments for us?
Okay, I'm Sandra Brennan. I lived out there since '77. And I went to the meeting when he first moved out there, or he bought it from my dad.
Okay,
And he said, well, I'm gonna keep it. You won't even know the junkyard's out there. After he moved in, shortly, the road started, they truck loader and gouged into the flat. And sometimes I can't even get out of my yard or out of my driveway to go to town or can't even come back for that matter. I sometimes have to wait 5-10 minutes for somebody to move so I can get out. And so I oppose it. I didn't agree with it. So, and I lost my mail service. I had moved my mailbox a mile up the road by the recycling center. Because the mail lady said that she couldn't come through because it was too hazardous to deliver my mail to me. And I kind of would like to have my mailbox back because sometimes I don't go anywhere.
yeah.
So, but the road is, they load and unload their vehicles on the road all the time. So, when they're loading, I don't like to bother them. But yet they could at least be kind enough and say, come and ask me or say something about if we're gonna load or unload, it'll be a few minutes. I can work with that. I have a hard time sometimes doing it. But I wanna go and I can't go.
Sure.
So, but then I've had so many flat tires, I have to buy tires for my vehicle about every 6 months, every year. And I don't put that many miles on my vehicle really. Because I get screws, nails, everything else in my tire, that's from on the road. So, but I think that's about it. I live at 3312 Gibson Hollow Road. That's the Bell White, or
Jeff, can you point that out, please? So,
that's that road.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
that structure.
Right there, yep.
okay.
I had a privacy fence up on the north side of my house for the longest time while the loader guys come and they come with vehicles and they push my privacy fence over.
Okay.
So, and I've had trucks and trailers coming down my yard to turn around because that's really about the only place they can turn around. I have like a driveway right in front of my house goes down, down farther. So I had that wide open, but that, right now I've got a gated down there, so they can't come down my driveway and turn around it. But every time they did, they would get something and then just leave, not tell me. So I think that's about it. I can't think of anything else. Thank you.
Sandra Briggs' daughter, Dawn, I don't actually live down here, but she had knee surgery to build knee replacement this year. And to get her down there, sometimes back and forth to the doctor's appointments was hard. We were late for one. It was partly my fault. I forgot to walk her, but when we went up the road, I had to wait to get out, and then we made it to the Northwest Bank. And I had to turn around. We always leave 15 minutes early. I had to turn around. We had to wait to get back to our house, get the walker, put it in the car, and then I had to wait again to get back up. So we see that a lot. I grew up down there. I hate to see how much is lost. Her front yard doesn't grow grass anymore. And anytime we've had a complaint, I usually stand out there and I address it with the officers. I call them, if I call the sheriff, I stay there. So it's known that I'm the one that called. And we have pictures dating back probably 10 years of just the road and how it's fell apart. There's just lack of consideration. My aunt's funeral, this has been years ago, we had to almost walk her up the road to get her in the car to get her to my aunt's funeral. So we see this a lot, and I just don't want to see another 23 acres. It may be barren land now, but when you start putting the oil and the gas and all that in there, that land's not only barren, it's going to be trashed forever. And no culverts, so when your driveway runs out, it blows all the rock and everything right down the drive. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments here? All right, we will close public comments and work. Let's discuss. I'm very disheartened by all of these ladies' statements. My question to either one of you, Mr. Christian, Mr. Frank, do you have any comments, rebuttal to her statements? I'd like to know if you have anything to say to her statement,
Not really.
because that's really disheartening.
We're trying to clean it up over the hill there. So we're trying to keep it off the road. And like the nails and screws. Got some of them, and I'm not down. They get some down. And also pick that stuff up coming out of that. Well, they got a good point, but if I got stuff over the hill, it's there off the road more, so.
It's years of this. And like I said, it's very disheartening to me to hear them talk about having to live in these conditions for years. Regardless of how the property is owned or how it's been used or who else is the neighbor, just to have to live with that. I probably, I'm very upset.
I agree, but
I mean,
if I'm on the other side of the road, I'm gonna do the same thing on one side as the other.
Well, that's not very,
Oh,
that doesn't say
yeah.
a whole lot, because I'm like, you're basically not taking into consideration at all your neighbor. Because by looking at that picture there, on each side of that road, you've got it where you're encroaching in on that road so much with all the stuff. You're not even giving any consideration to her being able to get in, get out, let alone her own personal property with her fence. And it's like, what kind of a neighbor is that? If you say, if you're gonna be on the other side of the road, it's not gonna be any different. That doesn't sound well with me, I guess, either.
Since September, after the letter from Darren Driscoll, significant improvements have been made on both sides of that road.
Except for my driveway.
But I don't think that's the county road.
Yeah, but I asked him one day what we could do about all that stuff on the road. And he's No, I think we could get it cleaned up. It has not been touched.
You agree with me that on both sides from the curve down, it's been a vast improvement since September.
Up to where the office is.
Wow, if that's a vast improvement, Mr. Kirsten.
That's 2019.
Yeah, I know. I was just out there the other day, and what you're telling me is a vast improvement. I didn't see I didn't see it before, because I haven't been down that road before, but, I mean, it wasn't good. And I had a lot of the same concerns that she had when I went to turn around. I'm like, there's nowhere for me to turn around. I don't know where I'm at. I'm looking at the edges of the road. I'm like you, I'm looking, are there nails, are there screws, is there metal, that kind of stuff. And I basically just turned right in the middle of the road, because there was no other place else for me to go. So
It's a narrow road. There's not a turn.
you're right, there's not a turnaround, there's narrow road, there's not nice groomed shoulders or anything, but there's also junk on those shoulders. I mean, I'm concerned for, who is this within Fort Dodge Fire District?
No, it's okay.
It is Oco? Wow. Does Fort Dodge Fire come out?
They will until the ozone shows up.
I mean, Oco's got, by the ways.
Because we had a fire, we had a house fire in '89. And also got fire department's called, but then Fort Dodge came out, Fort Total came out, but was there, the Fort Dodge Fire Department.
I would be concerned about emergency services just being able to access their
Well,
property.
that's, I mean, as previously discussed, that'd be the next step. As part of that conditional use permit, submits a site plan, and yeah, there'd be a lot of things that he'd have to do, required to do. It'd be fencing right along the right of way, make sure there's no junk in the right of way, some type of opaque fence, and that the junk cannot exceed, even though there's really nobody around except for this residence. Yeah, you gotta operate it so that it looks attractive. It's an attractive nuisance, you know, I mean. So you just can't be free range, and I'm sure he's going back and forth on the right of way, you know, there's no entry point to the east and west on how he operates. It's free range down there, I'm sure, how the operations are running and so forth. Again, as I look at that air photo, it's like, he does it efficiently and effectively, and again, in a building. I've seen these operations done all over the United States, recycling operations in the building, even auto recycling in the building. And you know, don't wait for the price of metal to rise or fall, just dollar cost average and just clean the property up and keep your operation functional and efficient. And there's room on the west side of that road there. Plenty of room to operate a nice auto salvage yard indoors. You know, you're gonna have some stuff outdoors and stuff, and recycle track and more track. And you know, we don't have, you know, really good auto recycling. We don't have an auto recycling ordinance in the zoning ordinance, you know, or be placed in the zoning ordinance. So it has, you know, requirements of fencing and just make sure these things are tagged up. Again, that's something we'd be looking at. That's why, you know, the conditional use permit would be able to put conditions on it based on, you know, its location, what's around it, and if it was to get approved, you know, what it should look like. Obviously, be fair to Mr. Frank. We clean it up in a lot of ways, so.
Well, and that's a question that I have. In the I-1 district for auto wrecking, salvage, and junkyards, that's one of the conditions is that he poses a solid fence, not less than 6 feet in height and no more than 10 feet tall. So by rezoning that I-1, he's gonna have a fence all the way around that property.
He would come in and show us exactly where he's gonna be storing these materials outside. It's the whole entire property or 3/4 of it. And he'd have to give us a site plan showing what areas are gonna be what I call vacant or landscaped or whatever, you know, if it's not gonna utilize the whole entire property. To be honest with you, I haven't looked at-
Facility shall be enclosed.
yeah, oh yeah,
Facility
no,
shall be
yeah, whatever
enclosed.
he's,
So,
everything that, yeah, will have to be enclosed by fence, yeah, 6 foot
Okay.
tall. Yeah. Not in the right of way, right, so.
but that would be on the I-1, not
I won't.
on the other side of the road where all the other trucks. Yeah. quite a project to fence that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's a project. From what I saw. Do you have some comments from Laura?
Yes, Laura, just, have a comment. I'm extremely worried about the testimony of the neighbors. I would not want my yard torn up and not being able to get around when I want to.
Thank you, Laura.
Mr. Frank, if this was to go through, would you have a dedicated road where somebody could come in, they could drop everything, that way you can get everything off of the county road?
Well, we're working on the west side, that's where we're gonna do some of the scrap metal. And we're going in there before. Yeah, we were planning on putting semis in on the west side.
So you're putting them on the west side and then transporting the vehicles over to the east side.
When the vehicles come in, they come on the east side.
I just see that, there's an old mining road there. I don't know if that's a road that you could use to bring your semis in.
Yeah, those, yeah.
I just see that as an opportunity to be able to get you off the county roads, clean that up a little bit. I mean, it really does look like there's a lot of material that's in the county right away instead of on your property, either one.
Yeah, that's. That's.
I understand.
We don't have any more currently, Jeff.
Not in terms of aerial imagery, no. But
I would just think of the conditionally. There were the semis are coming off, opening up the road for the neighbors. That.
Yeah, that feels, that's. Oh, that is, yeah, that's what it's, yeah.
that's the most current imagery that we have here. She's able to access it. That energy might be maybe 2020 or something. Maybe like that, if we have it, if we have it.
In this photo, it looks like there's water in this new area, right? Looks like there's some water up there, and then side of there. Is there a pond right there?
I think they had a retention pond at one time for water services.
You mentioned about the DNR, how often do they come in there and test your water? So like where you're at right now, looks like there's a pond and there's part right above. Looks like.
Well, I don't know that there is, it was a pond that it dried up. I don't think it's there anymore. They had a pond in there for. So, or there was a back of water.
While Alice is pulling this up, I have another question for the applicant on the conditional uses. In our conditional uses, it talks about permanent closure of the facility for any reason, commencement of cleanup and mitigation of all hazardous conditions shall begin and continue until the site has been declared complete by the county, state, and or federal authorities. And that you're required to submit a performance bond of $50,000. Do you have is there an exit strategy? I mean, I'm just curious if you have one or not.
Well, we've got a bond on Purdue appliance manufacturing. Got a bond on that.
I mean, when, I know you have kids, I didn't know if kids were planning on taking over. Okay.
There'd be places that come in. They just love to come in, clean something like that.
Okay. Does it say on there also?
9/4/19.
19.
Any? I was out there the other day, I didn't even make it to that side road.
Didn't make it, which
Where this road comes down off the side. No, not tall enough. Where this little road goes down the side there, I didn't even make it to there. I barely made it around that corner. And there was stuff on the side of the roads. And that's why I never even saw that road, being out there. And that's why I turned around in that area. I didn't even know your place was down there.
And up there to the west, it looks like it's fairly clean, and you said you are gonna reutilize that?
Well, one of my concerns is, I know this isn't, I mean, you're my husband's age. My concern, and it's always my concern on this board with what we do with rezoning, is what happens in 50 years, what happens in 100 years. And as close as that is to the river, if the DNR was not wanting the landfill to do anything else, this, to me, I mean, obviously your grandfather did on the one side, but this to me seems like a lot of the same operations, like Vernon said, that the landfill would do. And I have concerns about that. And again, I'm looking at it not just immediately, I'm looking at it for years long after we're all gone. So.
Well, and I have, staff has the same concerns. I mean, next step would be to process a conditional use permit. And before I process that, I'd say, okay, once you submit this in concurrently, I want to see a letter from the DNR. Say they're going to allow this use to happen on this property and what type of stipulations they're going to put. So that I,
Well, but and that's my concerns too, is the fact that the DNR's already, we've already asked for some cleanup, or the county's asked for some cleanup, and the compliance hasn't been 100%. So we're asking to rezone for something that has a conditional use with conditions, so we don't know if they're gonna get compliance from these conditions. So that's a concern for me too, is that. So
I mean, to be fair with the applicant, I'm sure there's a way to comply. I mean, whatever conditions there are, well, lots of times there is. I mean, whether it's all done indoors or, you may not be able to operate it the way it's operating. People may be able to, I don't know. But I'd want to get that letter from the DNR prior to processing the conditional use permit. Against from the outside agency.
now, again, we look at this piece of property here, and Mr. Christian states that, it's, pretty much useless piece of property. Maybe right now it is. But will it be a useless piece of property in 50 years? Will it be a useless piece of property further down the road? I don't know. I can't answer that question.
What conceivably was good to,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
if it's been dormant and unused for decades, it doesn't give a lot of promise in the future. Something like this.
Well, we have an ATV park that's kind of done that same thing. And that's what makes me think of, okay, that was kind of a useless piece of property too, but someone found a use for it.
And the reason that happened is it was worthless, totally worthless. The reason that happened is legislation passed that exempted the gypsum boards from any residual liability that's occurred. The reason they kept it was to try to keep people on. Once they were able to get rid of that liability, here it takes. don't see a four-bedroom apartment.
Mr. Gerson, is there any possibility that this land could be mined or gypsum taken out of it, or it's done?
It was subsurface mined and they ran shafts in it. And then that was discontinued. Then Quarry Services came along with the landfill, stripped the overburden, and then the pneumatic hammers knocked it all down until all was left. So it's all, is the forest still there or is it gone to everything? Down to the blue line.
One more? Does anyone have any additional questions?
I guess I would just like to, no matter which way it goes, I would like to see that there's a better treatment of your neighbor, and better thought of the neighbor to be able to get in and out, and that she can be taken care of a lot better, no matter whether you stay at this site or move to the other side. That consideration of the neighbor who's been there longer, able to have access for property and everything else too. So, I mean, no matter what, I think we really need to be considerate. of the person who lives there.
And that's a good valid point. I don't know, that could be put in as part of the conditional use too, is that the other side of it is not zoned I-1. There's no abstraction, so this fencing, that has to happen with the conditional use permit. Could it be part of the conditional use permit, but the other part of the property fence?
More of a question on that one, because it's a different property.
Yeah.
So one could make the argument that it's possibly the same operation, but that to determine.
But it is something that's,
No,
I mean, you're wanting to, the applicant really wants this property, as a business, to look like a business as opposed to what it looks like now. And we're going to be fencing over around on one side, and we think we want to fence on the other side too, which is in turn going to help the neighbors. And I think that delineation of where the road is supposed to be. What's the setback on that? 150 feet, have the side. Sorry for that out.
yeah. It has a nice treatment of trees and see come around that bend on that side. Yeah, I mean, so some things in place there, but really, I mean, it's an opaque fence that really does the trick. In the winter, when the leaves are gone, so. And condition there, or junk, we probably another section behind that. So.
Does anything, I've not, anybody here been along the river there? I mean, is there an area next to the river then that, that stuff wouldn't be allowed to be? I mean, Mr. Kirsten, is there, is that a DNR thing that where they could say, okay, you're the property owner, but you have to keep things so far back?
I've got property right on the river.
Okay.
But there's a floodplain, so I can't put cars or anything down in the floodplain.
Okay, do we have one thing? Map for that area, we have that over there?
We'd have to put that up to the GIS.
Okay.
So there might be a floodplain, yeah, whether that's, 100 or a couple hundred feet, yeah, there would be jurisdiction there.
Okay.
Or they can't really put anything in there. I mean, I don't want to say anything, but they'd have to get approval through the DNR. Typically, so.
Well, the big push around here to make, waterways, improving our waterways, improving recreation on the waterways, that type of thing. I wondered if there was a certain setback that you were floating or tubing or kayaking or what have you, not kayaking.
Can you go back to that air photo there, Allison?
The 2019 one.
I've been back there. I grew up down in this area, in the south side of town. I've done a lot of hiking back there, so. But when you get back at the 2019 one, You're gonna see that old, looks like an old abandoned railway easement back here. Another area. Go back to the first area. There you go. This is an abandoned railroad easement most likely. Pretty much everything, it just drops off from here down. Oh, yeah. Right down to the river all along. This pretty much sits up on the bluff. For the most part, all the way through. So I would think, I mean, the floodplain is definitely, all these areas down through here. It may encroach up to here, but I don't want to comment on that. I have to have the floodplain map, but I don't know if I can almost guarantee that this is all floodplain down there. So-
River's never been up that close.
Oh, no, probably not, but
Some of it's been designated as floodplain.
yeah, it has the potential,
Part of it is.
So that line, that was, I forgot to ask you about that. Those lines, that's the railroad right of way?
an abandoned railroad right away, years ago, back, like goes back in the 1800s, early 1800s.
Okay. But the applicant does own that.
I don't know.
I own a piece of it.
You may own a
I
piece of
own
it.
2 acres of it. And the county owns the rest of it. County got it from the box factory,
Okay.
all the way down to Kale.
And that may be part of a trail system, future trail system that's going to be coming through there.
That was my next question.
They sold all that.
That's
They
why
haven't
I-
acquired it, and we'll be working on trying to acquire those pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times, that's these old railroad right of ways, those are used for trails, bike trails, that sort of thing. And that's, I guess, what my questions were as far as does the DNR
They're
have any
working on
setback?
that now. They've started
Okay,
making that a trail.
okay. Well, board. Anyone else have any other questions? I will entertain a motion, so. Jeff, I don't, you didn't write out any specific motion for anyone, so it would just be motion to
Approve or deny.
approve or deny.
And if you're going to deny, if you give some specific reasons, that would be nice.
So to the board members, if someone would like to make a motion, that we go to pick one, either approve or deny.
I'm gonna make the motion that we deny. And for the reasons of use that box and take this, choose from. But I guess I'd rather see it stay on the side where it's at, to have it more contained over there. So to deny the motion to change from I1 or ME to I1. Reasons why, but I guess I'm like, I've got many reasons why. I'd like to keep everything all on the one side of the road and be able to just have that road just kind of cleaned up.
You don't want to see non-conforming use expanded.
Correct.
I don't speak up.
No,
So I don't want
that's,
that.
yeah, I mean, that's.
Kind of help you out here.
Trying to keep it so it's not expanded, so it doesn't encroach over that road, it stays onto the one side, which is
I previously approved for.
grandfathered.
So clarify. We have a motion. Change from mineral extraction to industrial.
To, as
For the
to,
purpose of keeping the non-conforming use where it is.
versus, yeah, versus expanding it.
You have a second comment. So just to be clear, with our motion is to deny from mineral extraction to industrial. The reasons were stated. So if you are voting yes, you are voting to deny it. If you vote no, you are opposed to deny. Is that clear for everyone? Jeff, are you all right with that?
Yes, yes.
Say that. Okay. So the motion that's on the table is the motion to deny the change from mineral extraction to industrial. So if you vote yes, you are voting to deny this change. If you vote no, you want to see the change. All right. Okay, once we're all clear. On our motion to deny, a roll call votes. My name is first on the list. I am voting yes to deny. Tyler?
Yes.
Correct?
You want a reason?
No, just say yes to deny. I think that's real clear. Yeah.
Laura?
Laura had messaged me, I just want to tell you in case my phone dies, I'll be voting against the rezoning to industrial.
Jeff, you want to interpret that as a yes?
Yes, correct. Yep. Mhm.
Absent. Tommy?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And Berta?
Yes.
So we are unanimous, yes to deny. We will send that to the Board of Supervisors as change request being denied. And Jeff, when can Alan expect that to go to?
I'll be in touch with you, Mr. Kirsten, on a specific date. Flush that date out. There's some notice requirements and so forth. There are a series of hearings as you're aware of for considerations for certain, which is the final consideration. So I'll be back in touch with you most likely in the states. Yeah. Okay. But
We have a few more business items to take care of here, but you folks are free to leave if you like. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay, board, let's move on to item C.
Right, Laura, you want to be very, Laura's no longer here.
Okay. Oh, okay,
Okay, she's no longer busy.
we're out at 8:00. All right, item number C, public hearing of the zoning ordinance text amendment and ordinance amending Article 6 parking regulations of the zoning ordinance of Webster County.
oh, thanks. So as you're aware, last meeting, I put together the text amendment for your review to discuss, which I thought was good. We can get a discussion before we move towards the public hearing. And the changes that we were looking at to get your input. And so I've outlined everything here, pretty self-explanatory. Had an opportunity to take a look at and read the amendments. We wrote the amendment to reflect, this, what you see here will replace Article 6 text in its entirety. So all that will come up. All this is new, all underlined and new. So there was a lot of it was carried over, but there's some new stuff that was brought in. And kind of outline that what was done with this proposed amendment provides in staff report. So, just, if you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, go ahead and move this text amendment to the supervisors for their review and adoption.
Pretty much.
It's pretty much
We'll talk about
what we
that.
talked about, and yeah. They like that?
Thank you.
Yeah, so all new development will comply with that. If somebody comes in and wants to restrike, then we'll obviously be required to comply with that. It's already out there, it'll stay as it is, but usually you get caught up on the road. 10-foot lights don't isn't installed.
I find it.
Need a motion for that?
Would you like a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll motion to approve.
Ian, you got the easy look. I need your look. Okay.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Can we just, vote yes to approve? All in favor, say yes? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? All right. That passes. All right. Okay, item D, discussion, comprehensive plan text amendment, removal of clump, plan expansion plan, process and concept. Jeff?
Okay. All right, just to kind of step back and some of the events that have happened. We put an RFP out about a month ago to do the corridor study along Highway 20 and some other corridors. Contacted some of the consultants by phone. We placed the RFP on the EPA website. And right now we have 2 bidders that submitted bids. This conference and MSA is on it. So we're going to have discussions with the board. We're going to establish a committee to review those RFPs and rank those. There's going to be 3 of the planning and zoning commissioners that are on that review committee. And so I'll be talking to you with you to review that. There's a 5-member committee. They'll be ranked. The board does not have to vote. The way the RFP was written does not have to vote to know better. It's going to be based on their experience and what they've done and so forth. We'll move forward with that. But obviously, this issue with the clump has come up. The review of that, that's what this clump that's in the it's noted in the comprehensive plan, and the removal of that. Staff is supportive of the removal. It's something that obviously we want you guys to take a look at. I'd like to get, it'd be nice to get a recommendation whether or not that should stay or go. I provided all the excerpts of the comprehensive plan so that when we move forth and engage this consultants, we'll let them know right up front that this is something we will that's so desired. And there's other ways to tackle that to different overlay zones or districts to identify exactly what type of development we want to see along these corridors. And obviously, there's going to be some coordination with the city, some of the cities, especially the city of Fort Dodge, and availability of services. If this would be extended. So I'm just doing what I was told by the planning and zoning commission. I'll put this on there for discussion. Like I said, we support that, it gets removed. I'm going to tell you right now that I've had discussions with the board of supervisors. They'd like to see all this get flushed out to consultants. As opposed to taking action on the board. I'd like to see us take action on the right away here. Trust me. But obviously, I've taken my direction from them once they hired me, and they just. Some of them don't see a problem with it, some of them do. So I'm just going to tell you right now. So, they want the consultant to really take a hard look at it. But I don't think it's not a problem if you want to give a recommendation to the consultant now or whatever, how you want to handle this. But I'm just bringing this forward to you. So.
And thank you. That it's, it's a 2-part process. We can vote on it as a board, and then we can send it to the board of supervisors, and the board of supervisors can sit on it until the consultant, comes back with it. I personally don't need a consultant to tell me it's not working. I've seen it not work a couple of times. And to me, it's disturbing to have a part of our comprehensive plan that we don't understand. And now, if there's a board of supervisor member that understands it better than I do, perfect. You know, that's good, maybe they can come explain it to me. I think, I still see it as something that was put into our comprehensive plan that maybe back in 2008, 2009, when this was put together, would have been a useful tool. Right now, I see it as more of a detriment to our comprehensive plan. And, but I mean, that's just my thoughts on it. And like I said, if you'd like us to, I mean, it's up to you, Jeff. If you'd like us to wait, I just don't see any. We had a conversation with this at the last meeting, and we kind of all thought it could go.
Right.
If we go ahead and make a recommendation that we remove it, like I said, we could go ahead and send it to the board of supervisors.
And then I'd come back forth with the text amendment to the comp plan. And obviously, we have a public hearing.
Sure.
That'd be the next step, and then the board would take. But I would see it as it would be getting denied. On the basis that I've heard a lot of different opinions. Why this is one of the reasons why we hired a consultant. Whatever workshops. So, yes, I'm supportive of it. To get rid of it, as I said. Maybe it's something we just kind of sit and wait and know that the recommendation from the planning and zoning commission by the end of the day, which I would think is someone was to change, is to go ahead and remove that or modify it in some way, some totally different way. I don't know.
I have to be a person on side. I'm so new to this board.
You want to understand it more? Is that-
Yeah, because I don't want to say, hey, put it up. I don't want to
Oh, no,
butt any heads, but I don't really know
No,
much about
no,
it.
no,
So,
you gotta get your opinion. That's what.
yeah, and that's why we're having
you guys are talking about this clump, and
Yeah.
I mean, I know about it, but I've just been introduced to it, so for me to make a decision for, it's kind of scary.
if we want to wait, if we want to wait and have a consultant, maybe a consultant could say, hey, I've seen those work somewhere, I've seen them not work somewhere. Like I said, just in my experience getting on the board, it's being used as a legal means of putting development where maybe you don't need development yet. The club to me was always this long range goal. And I guess I always look at our comprehensive plan as something that needs to be taken care of or something where we don't need that long range. But
Good development develops of water and sewer. And so something for this is for the city of Port Dodge to really look at down the road and identify those areas adjacent to the city that they see that they may want to annex, come up, long range plan, how they see these areas developing, whether it be residential, industrial, commercial, whatever they may be, but
I mean, when you look at, I just think it's, for me, it's just been infancy. When we've had a couple of rezones where people have said, attorneys have said, well, you have to allow it because it's in the comp plan. And it's like, well, it's in our comp plan, but the comp plan was a long range plan. It wasn't the future land use map. That's, I guess, my problem is that we're bypassing that future land use map, which is the more planned, this is where we expect to see development. And like I said, maybe a consultant will tell us, a little bit better way to use that. But I guess when you look at like Story County's plan, they're very specific about where they want to see their development, where they want. Maybe we need to be a little more specific. A little more, rather than have this big vague shaded area going around. That's the problem I have with Quebec. This is big area. And when you talk about, well, we're gonna allow a development down here, now just use the example of, you know, the stump development, is that when you start allowing that here, you also have to allow that here. You set that legal precedent. And I don't know, you didn't see yet on that or anything?
They're really good enough. I mean,
Okay. And I guess that's always my fear, is just setting that precedent of if you do something in one part of the county, you have to do it in the other part of the county. And with the pump out, I think there's just kind of reason why.
Too many are finding loopholes to get around it into the gray area, and then they're pointing at us. We can do it because it's in that area, and we're like, can't find and stacked negative is too.
Well, they're using it, that's the legal excuse, is, well, it's in your pump, it's in the pump map, and it's in your comprehensive plan. And if you go back to any teachings of Gary Taylor will say, well, what's in your pump plan? You know, what, and people say, well, what's allowed, and you say, well, what's in your pump plan? So I look at it like, well, we're having difficulties using this map that only has the 3 different designations. And, you know, maybe we should be using the future land use map instead, which has all the different designations where we kind of laid that out a little bit more. This is what we expect to see here, here, and here, as opposed to well, anywhere here. You know, but like I said, I'm totally open to waiting and getting a consultant in, and I mean that's fine. That's, you know, that's what you guys want to do.
I haven't been on this board long enough, but from what I've seen, the pump has just been seen.
It causes problems.
Yes,
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything good.
That's what I'm trying to see the good of it. And when you start looking at, and I know there are a couple members of the board of supervisors that, for whatever reason, you know, want to keep it in and use it. But I mean, you put these 2 maps up right next to each other, and like I said, you're looking at a lot of things in a lot of places, and setting up that legal challenge. And that's what I see it being a problem. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what consultant can say, especially about, you know, the major roadways and working with the city of Fort Dodge. You know, we have to work with the city of Fort Dodge. That's imperative that we work together and have the same things. Also with gallery, Dayton, you know, we've got to work with all the towns.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of, you know, if they're gonna recognize a lot of commercial development, future development, a lot of dodge. Yeah, think about it. The trips are, I mean, the trips may not be there, that area has the most traffic. And it's, to me, I mean, I was going, there was nothing wrong, in my opinion, nothing wrong with this. Because he was directly butting the major corridor. You know, he wasn't inside the clump a mile, a half a mile, requesting something spotty out here. He had traffic right out there and everything, and there was not a house within 2,000 feet. So, I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but, you know, so this stuff will all be flushed out. And yeah, the clump, like you said, Mark, I agree with you, it's just a blob that could entertain a lot of different land uses. And, you know, but, you know, everyone has to do their market study. You can find out some of this stuff because, you know, they've never even thinking of it in certain areas, you know.
Some of the stuff on our future land use map, we may find we want to change.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's a good thing. Yeah, that's
Expect that to change.
yeah, exactly. I am too. Make sure everything's consistent with what we're trying to look at, or how we want to see these corridors, whatever we, you know, consultant identifies. It might not be all these corridors, but I think definitely the highway 20 corridor, maybe some stuff on 169. Just make sure everything's in place, the right lane use, the right zoning. And whether, and how we want to see these develop with certain overlay requirements and desired uses. So that,
I see the club map as the desperation will take anything. We're so desperate, will take anything. And I see.
I mean, it would help their case through a rezoning.
Sure.
I mean, that's what yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But if we want to market ourselves, and I don't think when our comprehensive plan was put in place, again, just my opinion, but I don't think back in 2008, 2009, we felt like we were in a position to market our area. And I feel we're there now.
That's exactly my thought, 13,000 acres, totally different than where we're at.
Exactly, and we need to say, hey, look, Webster County's the place you want to be, and here's why.
Yep.
You know, and we've got this going on, we've got this going on, and really, you know, put that forward. And when you look at, like a comprehensive plan from like Story County, or when you look at, like, let me see, look at the zoning of Iowa City. Right, I mean, Iowa City is so, this is crazy. But, you know, these are places that have said very specifically, this is what we want here. And what scares me about this is the fact that, you know, who's going online and looking at our comp plan and going, well, I guess I can make this work legally by using this map, and it's maybe not quite there on this map, but I'm going to use this map, and I've got my case. As, you know, as Mr. Person did. And I said, you know, credit to him that he's a good attorney. But I feel that when you have Mr. Kirsten, Mr. E, Mr. Driscoll, they're all the boss part of mine, and they can't seem to all agree on how this is to be used. But like I said, I'm more than happy to wait till a consultant comes in and they want to, you know, maybe say right off the bat, hey, look at this first, give us your opinion.
I think everybody, by the end of the day, everyone wants the same goal. There's places to be developed. We want clean industry, we want it to look nice.
Sure.
Put along the corridor, you know, these corridors in specific locations. Let's identify those.
Yeah.
But I think we all want it, by the end of the day, get to that same result. So the second one.
I think, yeah, just being able to say, hey, you know, this is a great place to be, we want industry, and this is the kind of industry we want. You know, just like with the ag park, you know, and making things site ready, that to me is the kind of the same thing as making our zoning site ready. And the comp plan to me doesn't look like site ready, but a more detailed, hopefully, a consultant will give us more detailed ideas on how to make it look like.
I really think it's that Highway 24 to 167, and then that P59 corridor too, I think is going to be taken a look at. And some of the supervisors, that really should be analyzed a little bit more. And what's going on there, so.
Let's just wait then.
Yeah, we'll just wait,
Yeah, we'll just wait, we can talk with the consultant. And maybe, like I said, and I was hoping by having it advertised here, we would maybe get some public discussion. And personal comment, but she didn't. You know, if anybody had any comments on the phone, that they would bring it forward. But no, more than happy to wait on that. Side note, anybody seen the channel 13, the agriculture? They did a story on the agriculture. Where it's a whole, I didn't realize they're all over the United States too, different neighborhoods that are zoning areas where they're building houses, and it's kind of all centered around, you know, the school communities, gardens. It's like almost a buffer between big ag and residential. It's this area where those two kind of come together, but the ag is on a smaller scale.
I've seen that down in Florida, you know, happen with some of the orange groves. Some of that stuff.
Trying to decide who's.
Good or bad? It is what it is. I mean, I've seen it used to attract workers to live out there too, and, you know, help with the crop production and all that kind of stuff. But then you have those established farmers market type stuff, and start growing stuff in greenhouses and stuff. It's an e-concept. Yeah.
Eco-friendly, eco-friendly buildings, eco-friendly, you know, everything.
That's really, that's something that should be brought up. I mean, it's not, to me, that's attractive, like, location.
We had a reason coming a couple years ago over by Spencer area, and they have lots of organic farms around Spencer.
That's what, yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, that's, I mean.
It's pretty interesting. I mean, that's really crazy. Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that I want to see.
Yeah, that'd be
in our
very attractive for people to go to. It's like almost its own little farmer's market in a way, you know, it's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was really, like I said, I think it's in Norwalk.
Could be.
I think it's down in Norwalk, South Point. Or they actually they have one set up.
Well, you're right, you can see that as a transitional area right outside the city of Fort Dodge, you know, I mean,
Was that just recently?
Yeah, just a couple nights ago, I was called up.
I just remember Stiff's nursery as a kid.
I know.
That goes way back.
I think that's what my breath, I remember your name.
Going to get the Christmas tree, the
I
stars,
used
and all that
to
kind of stuff.
remember like the big barrels of sea.
Yeah.
And my brother used to always
We just let it
put
hang in
the
there.
seats, and Mr. Stitt would be so mad.
I worked at his home farm.
Really? My husband did
Okay.
work for Mr. Stitt.
So,
Wow.
Yeah, real quick, consultant firm, has there been any talk about looking at Highway 7?
That's in there. Yeah. Some of the stuff, I'm gonna say that it's probably gonna get, probably will get weeded out based on the number of trips. Because we're really looking at commercial, industrial, you know, agri industry, and, you know, not to say, you know, this.
Well, I'm just more interested along the lines of where the, like, ag park is out there. I mean,
No.
they're,
Yeah.
that's,
So they'll look at that. Again, I think Barbara was kind of hit the nail on the head, just making sure that the proper zoning and land uses are in place. And, you know, it wouldn't surprise me that we may have an overlay district proposed, possibly, you know.
You know, that's an interesting concept to do an overlay district. You know, just to.
It's its own little zoning area that has its own requirements, its own uses, like some of the uses you mentioned.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's a good location based on you know, based on its location, trips, and where it's at, and what could happen, and maybe the consultant has seen these ideas throughout the whole state, and might have, you know, has an understanding of that, and so.
We'll just read on that, you don't need a motion on that, do you?
No.
Okay, one last thing, I know, how is 7 o'clock open for everybody? 7 o'clock open for everybody, or
The reason why I was suggesting an earlier time again is that it works really well with the security here at the courthouse, and I'm just, had some discussions with Mr. Fleer, and he would love to see us move to 6 o'clock. I mean, the public is gonna show up regardless. I mean, if there's something on the agenda nowadays, we're back in the old days, it was like, oh, always have the meetings later, so the public can get there, they can't get off of work. I think the workplaces have been more flexible with people leaving and coming to meetings if they have to come to a meeting. But knowing that, you know, we do have possible consultant coming on board, and some of these meetings could go a little bit longer. I don't know, I'm open to it. I mean, I could tell you the Board of Adjustments, they meet at 5 p.m. So that's
I
gonna.
was a commissioner for 5 years and did that forward.
City.
City.
The city.
Forward.
So, and I understand that some people, you know, this is the county, some people may have to travel in a little bit, but.
or not?
Yeah, I think I had to drive far this summer.
You were working before. You were working before.
It's been a while, but yeah, now that I'm not working till 5.
If we make it earlier than that. It really, I mean, it's up to you guys. It's up to you guys.
earlier, later it won't work.
Earlier?
Earlier's fine.
Yeah,
I mean, to get out of here sometimes at 9 or 10 o'clock, which could happen, you know, with some of the stuff we have going on down the road. It's a little late.
Now that I don't work till 5.
I'm
Yeah.
used to it.
it's as long as the board's okay on that.
6 o'clock, I think is a good time. I think that's as opposed to doing anything, yeah.
You're just gonna have to like really reiterate it and
Yeah.
have such reminder. Remember, 6
6
o'clock, not 7, because it's really in.
I told him, I said, you know, I knew you had to drive quite a ways, and like I said, in the planting, if I'm planting, I'm not gonna do it.
So
So.
I'll
And
take
in the
that.
fall, the elevator's open until 6, and
I'll take that recommendation, because I'm gonna have to get the supervisor's blessing on that. I mean, I wanna make sure they're okay with that too, but I don't think we've had an issue with that, so.
well. I just-
But if we do, I'll let you know, we'll be back to 7 in our meetings.
As long as everybody's okay with it, and once.
I'm good with whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know when.
Okay. You want an official vote on that, Justin?
So, that's fine. So the RFP, yeah, so the bids that came out from that RFP, those are gonna be distributed this week to the review team. those. And then I anticipate on March 1st that the Board of Supervisors is going to go ahead and move forward and approve all of those. So then, obviously, there'll be a kickoff meeting, and I anticipate that probably happening most likely. There may or may not be a March meeting. So, but I think in April, will probably be the kickoff, unless the consultant has an issue with that.
There's nothing else, if we have a motion for adjournment? All right, and do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right,